I signed Proclamation number 1081, placing the entire Philippines under martial law.
Martial law is probably the darkest part of the Philippine history. While everyone may have a diverse opinion about it, it is important that we recognize and understand this bloody period in the nation's history. As we always say, never forget, never again. Martial law was declared in the Philippines by Ferdinand Marcos Sr. in 1972. This allowed him to consolidate his power and rule by decree. During that time, thousands of Filipinos were imprisoned, disappeared, tortured, and killed. The media and the press were also censored and controlled, and civil liberties were suspended. Today, I am honored to have three students who will share their opinion and perspectives about martial law. By listening to their narratives, we can not only broaden our views, but also build meaningful connections. I believe that by engaging with the past through personal lenses, we take another step towards realizing never again, never forget.
So, as far as I know, no, martial law is, of course, it allows the military to control or take over the civilian government during when it was established or declared on September 1972. No, nakalimutan ko sa exact date. But yeah, during that time, no, as based on my research, no, um, there are a lot of institutions that were shut down. There were people who were killed, who were arrested, and basically it removed the people's democracy during that time, and even it controlled all over forms. It controlled over the all forms of media.
This is not common sa Philippines that we have martial law. So it was during the time of Ferdinand Marcos Sr. And like there are countries before Philippines who were able to experience martial law, but here in the Philippines it's quite bloody, and yeah, from the word itself it's martial, so it has something to do with our military, so it's very militarized. So that time, when I was a kid still, I used to watch documentaries. That is the reason why I took political science actually, kasi my grandmother is a survivor, technically a survivor, since she was able to, live beyond the martial law regime.
Well, martial law is not just a past, but it is a story, a history of the Philippines, a bloody, torturous part of our history. During the Marcos administration, the late dictatorship, his regime was actually declared martial law. And probably there were a lot of victims. And those victims are actually known as activists for being against to their administration, or not just being against, but actually someone who wanted to just voice out their opinion in the public.
Unfortunately, as time passes by, many Filipinos seem to forget and fail to recognize the dark history and the human rights abuses under the Marcos Sr. regime. Continuing to acknowledge all the atrocities under martial law, though uncomfortable, is necessary to prevent distortion, honor victims' experiences, and allow our nation to move forward honestly. Facing this painful history represents true patriotism and justice for those who bore the burden of martial law's darkness.
the historical revisionism is really rampant, which means na there are a lot of fake news that's going throughout social media and even on papers, which represents different accounts or different angles of the history about martial law. And my message is, we real as youth know, since we are really exposed to social media, we need to educate ourselves. We need to teach ourselves to collect information that are reliable, that represents truth or katotohanan, since that's what we really need now, since we also need to consider that the son of Ferdinand Marcos Sr. Is governing our country right now. We need to kanang tandaan that we should not forget, and we should not forget the past. We should we should not allow the history repeats itself. And my message, of course, to those who failed to recognize everything that happened in our history, I have this phrase that I always read when I join forums and discussions about martial law, that kung hindi tayo kikibo, sino ang kikibo? At kung hindi tayo kikilos, sino ang kikilos? Kaya tayo dapat ang lumaban para sa bayan.
It may sound cliche again to mention that those who forget history has the potential to repeat the history, diba? So, it might be true. Kasi right now, they were able to elect another Marcos. The fact that a Marcos, like, binaboy niya yung Philippines eh. So, for me, we should really not forget what happened in the past. Not because we just want to, like, parang magtanim ko ng sama ng loob sa mga Marcoses, but it is to remind people that Marcoses were not heroes during their time. They were not golden era, or like parang mayaman yung Pilipinas before. So for me, to those Filipinos who tend to forget the history, sana maliwanagan kayo that what happened during the Marcoses is not worth celebrating. It's not worth praising. So we tend to praise kasi murderer, plunderers, and a lot of people na nasa Senate ngayon, and even sa other positions, even local. And that should not be tolerated, because traditional politics has no place in this country. Because although we're a third world country, we'll remain a third world country if we'll tolerate those kind of people. And forgetting the history is forgetting those people who died during their time and during those bloody martial law era.
Want to educate them with humility, to just make them understand what is history, in order for them to truly just recognize and reflect on what it really is. Because that kind of way, we can these people would actually just realize that, oh, this is real, and this what happened in the past. I think what I can do is to be more patient to them. If I can be more patient, I can be more humble, then probably these people would listen to me.
As we delve deeper into the topic of martial law in the Philippines, we recognize the importance of seeking perspectives from various experts in the field. Today, we have invited professionals who specialize in the field of social studies to share their insights and knowledge on this bloody period in our nation's history.
Martial law is the time wherein the Philippines is in the dark ages, the time wherein our freedom of speech is suppressed, wherein the writ of habeas corpus is cancelled, wherein people are living in fear and terror. So definitely this is the time wherein the Filipinos have no right at all. Martial law taught us to fight for what is right.
So I was born in 1973. So we all know that the martial period started in 1971, 1972, di po ba? So I call myself as a martial law baby, and I am exposed to students or fellow students whose parents are, I would like to say, victims of martial law. So what I know about martial law, and being a social studies teacher for 11 years at Christian School International, I always teach my students that martial law happened, and because of being intoxicated with power, Marcos did not want to leave his post. So there are many things that he did for the country, like yun yung mga sinasabi sa atin, di ba? Yung lung center, heart center, everything. Sabi ko, that's one of his responsibilities as the president. But when your time is up to leave the position, you have to leave it. But what happened or what transpired is already history.
So martial law is infamous for human rights violations. Around 70,000 individuals were arrested, detained, or imprisoned. Around 34,000 were tortured. Around 3,200 were killed. And these things happened without due process of law.
They also shared their worries about some Filipinos' apparent disregard of the importance of recognizing martial law. Despite the passage of time, they emphasized the need for vigilance against authoritarianism, promoting justice, equality, and liberty to prevail, ensuring that the shadows of oppression never darkens the future generation's path.
So what would be my message? Do not forget martial law. Do not even try to belittle what happened during martial law, because it did happen. Nangyari talaga siya. And there are, people like Eta Rosales, alive and dead people who would vouch for what really happened during that time. And we should not forget the lessons of history. Yun yung mahirap eh. Nakakalimutan natin na ganun ang nangyari. And
We should learn from the lessons of history. Because those people who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
As a communication students, we believe that the scars of martial law's brutal oppression will forever mark our nation's history.
And the sacrifices of those who fought and suffered against tyranny must never be forgotten.
As it serves as an internal rallying cry, never again shall we allow democracy to be shackled by authoritarian rule.
Let us not turn a blind eye to the dark chapters of our history, most especially the martial law, where thousands suffered, many lost their lives, and our freedom was suppressed. It is important that we remember, honor, and learn from the past. We have heard from all of our interviewees, all echoing the same sentiment. Never forget, never again. The cost of our freedom was steep, paid with blood and tears. How can we forget? How can we dishonor the sacrifices that were made? Remember that in remembering, we honor the heroes who endured. And in protecting the freedom of the generations to come, we ensure that the lessons of history are not in vain.